context.
Yeah, perhaps we'll look to the National Assembly if there is the political will to make this happen in the short term. But, there's an interesting political development here. When you look at the plaintiffs then and now, the suit, as you know, was filed by attorneys general of 11 states, including Adamawa, Enugu, Osun, Oyo, Bauchi, Akwa Ibom, Plateau, Delta, Taraba, Zamfara, and I think there's Bayelsa somewhere there. All of them at the time, PDP controlled. Things have changed now. Today, many of them align with the APC, and it's raised questions about whether or not the case was more political than constitutional. Do you think that's a fair reading of this development?
Yeah, even though the case was anchored on constitutional provisions, but I think even the PDP governors that went to court, I think they went to court also out of political exigency. And that's why, if you remember, people were waiting, people had expected that the Supreme Court would determine the case one way or the other during the pendency of that emergency declaration. But what happened? People felt that the Supreme Court will house the matter. But we all know that if you file a matter and you need accelerated hearing, there are processes. You depose to affidavit of urgency, and then ensure that the matter is fast-tracked so that the Supreme Court can hear it expeditiously. But the fact that the governors did not push that also, introduced some element of politics into it. And then before you know it, you saw all of them jumping ship into the ruling party. But I must say this, that the fact that governors are in the same party with the president does not mean that they should always agree with him when it comes to the provisions of the law, always. And that's where we saw some governors of the APC during the 2023 general election approaching the Supreme Court to say that the president had introduced a new currency, redesigned the currency. And that by virtue of the provisions of the CBN and for the currency to be redesigned, there's certainly the Federal Executive Council, apart from the Federal Executive Council meeting, the, is it the National Executive Council or Federal Executive Council? I can't really remember, must approve. And that they were not in such meetings, and there was never such a meeting. And so it was on that ground. These were the same governors on the same platform with the then president. So the fact that you are in the same party with the president does not mean that you agree with him constitutionally always.
Depending on the political
I didn't
interest
see
at
that
the time.
push. Yeah, but I didn't see that push from the governor. So I will look at it more from, a political exigency because of fear that if we allow this to happen, then certainly we are also not, our foothold in our state will not be too firm. So
I hear you, Mr.
anything
Shoma.
can happen, and the governor the president can just say, well, I declare state of emergency in your state. So it was more political, to answer your question directly.
We have to leave in a few minutes, but I want us to turn to Rivers State shortly if we can, the trigger for this legal battle. With the benefit of hindsight, would you say that the declaration of the state of emergency actually de-escalated tensions and indeed restore order in Rivers? Because the way it appears now is looking like what we are experiencing is just a simple pause in what seems a deeper political crisis if you are paying keen attention to what's coming from the House of Assembly and even Mr. Governor himself.
Yeah, if you take anything that the governor of Similari Fubara, said, if we are to reckon with it, it was like they needed that interregnum to de-escalate. Even though a lot of us, I for one, does not agree with the provisions or to the position, the suspension of a democratically elected government, but the governor believes, even while he was decamping to APC, said that was what actually saved him. So the governor believes, and that because we might not know the underbelly of the activities that had happened, that transpired. So it is believed by the governor and some people that action by the president actually de-escalated. And now that same governor is in the same party with Mr. President and singing new songs. So who knows? If the state of emergency had not been declared, it probably would have been, gone by now. Maybe there'll be a kangaroo impeachment process, and the normal traditional.
But do you think that problem has been completely solved? Reading what has happened in the past few days.
Yes, I think the problem had been solved. Now, before, they were in the opposition party, and some people were of the view that the president has no business meddling in the affairs of the opposition party.
All right.
But the governor, the only God knows the agreement that the governors have with the president, the way they are swamping into the president's party like bees. So now you have Fubara and then the House of Assembly members. So certainly, you know, our political parties will tell you it's a family affair. Certainly, anything that is to happen. The man went to visit the president before he was received in APC, and the president detailed his minister for aviation to go receive him.
All right.
So anything that will happen will be resolved in the hallowed chambers of the Aso Rock, and
good place to leave it. I guess we'll see how it all plays. It all play out in the coming days. Lawyer and constitutional analyst Libros Oshoma, thank you so much for talking to us.
My pleasure always.